Welcome to the Leader Lifestyle podcast, where we believe every person can achieve their life goals, better health and happiness as a result of their work and not in spite of it. So on this show, top performers will share their philosophy, their routines and their advice so you can stop paying the price of work with your health and start leading your team into peak performance. So my guest today is Rob Griffiths. So Rob is a really experienced entrepreneur, and I'm excited to dive into some of his thoughts today. And when we first met a few years ago, wasn't it, Rob? You were organising road race events, and he's a veteran of several businesses. And Rob is a big advocate of leaders looking deeply at their own behaviour. And he shares some really great stuff on social media as well. And I'm sure there's a lot more besides. I mean, you've already mentioned the game thing before we started, Rob, but I'm just excited to do this. So thanks for coming on today.
Really excited to chat, Anthony. Yeah, absolutely.
And so before we kind of went live, you were mentioning that you're working in video games and how you could actually gamify people's health and their motivation as to be here. So just jump straight into that, mate. Like, explain what that is and how that's come about.
Yeah, so I'm working on a new startup at the moment, which is basically in the gaming industry, and it's a gaming event that we're talking. Well, we're in quite deep conversations with a few cities around the world at the moment. It's a big celebration of gaming, a meeting point for gamers, for indie developers, through to government, through to financiers, and it's actually the view that such a huge part of the world population now could be classed as gamers, whether that be Xbox, PC gaming, but all right through to Candy Crush. There's actually some real great elements there that we in terms of gamification that I feel that are gonna change the world even more so in the next few years. So we're kind of looking at all that aspects as well, and I think you see that as well with lots of elements of some of the apps you see, like Strava. There's an element of gamification, and it's understanding that as well. But I'm quite interested to see how gamification, particularly mental health as well, is something that I think that I'd love to explore a lot more over the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of well grounded in motivational psychology, isn't it? The gamification stuff of triggers and cues and rewards and all that sort of stuff. How could that work with something like mental health then?
I don't know. I think I've heard of some workplaces where they literally do have, on the screen, on the staff's screens, pop it like how you're feeling or whatever it may be, and it's an interesting one. I think, like, I'm a big advocate of, I wear the Whoop watch, and I do the morning about how I feel and then stuff like that. Do I feel I've got a sense of purpose? And all of that data, asking those questions and links to real, heart rate, whatever it may be. So I think, it's definitely something that I think people are working on. But obviously, I think the first and foremost is people's perception of mental health is probably quite important before you can truly gamify it as well. So
yeah, I think there's a bit of a misconception about mental health being something to just be aware of and talk about, but people actually need to understand there's actions to take as well to help.
Absolutely. I think there's a hell of a lot of it's quite fashionable to have a mental health charter or wherever, which is kind of led by a HR or wherever it may be. It's quite fashionable to say talk and etc. But when the reality is still quite a taboo, rightly or wrongly, definitely wrongly probably, but I think it's a taboo for people to talk about mental health. And also something that I'm very passionate about is leaders as well. I think for myself, leading businesses and having staff, investors, whatever it may be, customers, you've always got to be, to perceive to be on your game and mentally strong, where actually you're probably more, the stats show you're more likely to be affected by mental health as being a leader or an entrepreneur. So I think that's why I'm very excited to talk to you today, because I think it does start with the top with the doing. And I think some of the treatments that we say, like the talking culture, don't particularly work for C-suite and above. I think there needs to be different types of kind of therapy or wherever it may be. So I think it's great. I think there's a hell of a lot of initiatives going on in the workplace but I think it's still, there's a massive gap for leaders around health and well-being, and breaking that silence. And I kind of say, we need to shine a light on it a little bit more. So I'm quite passionate about that.
Yeah, I think, and us both having athletic backgrounds, I think it's similar, isn't it, with being competitive, being a leader. You don't want other people to know your weaknesses. That probably is the taboo, isn't it? Seeing mental health as a weakness. But no, that's a cool idea, actually. I've never thought of that, actually. Rather than having an open forum, actually going somewhere else and getting yourself sorted with your own support team, and then coming back in and being healthy with your team.
Yeah, I think the reality is that the just talk thing doesn't work for leaders as such. I think, as in their organization, I think, there's still got to be an element of leadership and separation. I think it's fine to talk about mental health candidly, but I think it's more about accountability group with peers. People actually experience it. I remember when I, had my kind of breakdown, a couple of years ago, and I spoke to NHS staff and they just could not understand the position that I was in. It was just alien to them, the fact of someone in his position feeling so lonely and isolated, and the guy just didn't have a clue how to deal with it. When you speak to other entrepreneurs about it and you are more open about it, it's much more easier conversation. So it's about accountability, and I think that also is from a physical health as well, physical and mental health. Having that accountability, having some systems, having that network of, I call it kind of your own mini virtual board, people who you can run ideas by, talk about your struggles, or vice versa. Share books. Books are great. I think, I'm in a culture now where, sharing book recommendations that help, all that kind of stuff is just different, which you necessarily wouldn't do with, staff who are lower down the kind of, the organization chart.
Yeah, I think I was talking to one of my mates the other day about this, actually. Like, some of the best benefits I've had of being in conferences and business masterminds is simply having other people who are going through the same sort of stuff that you can relate to, because it is something that none of my friends will understand. I don't think any of my friends have businesses, but you kind of just, they ask how things are going and you go, oh yeah, everything's going really fine. But actually, if the walls are crumbling down, you probably need someone who can relate.
And the reality is, you put yourself in that spotlight straight away. When you say you're going to set up a business, you're going to have friends and family who are going to say, oh God, you should have stuck to 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of got this saying, like, it's kind of like, once you step out the shadows of obscurity into ultimately you're in the valleys of peaks and troughs, and you've got people taking shots at you. And it's such a safe place, to be an employee, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think when you take that leap, you will have friends or family who will say, well, why are you doing it? I have that now still. This particular startup isn't being monetized. My friends and family go like, why are you doing it? Why? And they don't understand it. And if it was all to fall apart, they'd be going, we told you so. So you almost have that default of everything's great, blah 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 blah. And it's just because you've got to constantly have that perception of it's kind of like a swan, isn't it? You kind of on top of the water, nice and graceful and calm, but underneath you're kicking like fucking hell. So it's a tough situation. But if you and I still feel like that after everything I've been through personally, and having a breakdown, and very close to suicide, all of that kind of stuff because of work. There's still an element where, yeah, everything's cool, everything's going great, but what I have got now is those support networks, which I didn't have before, and that's the difference.
Yeah. So a few minutes ago, you mentioned about having a virtual board of people that you could get support from.
Yeah.
What kind of virtual roles would they be? Obviously, one would be mental health and support there, but what other support do you think that leaders need, and what have you benefited from?
I think firstly, some of these people don't even know they're in your virtual board. They're just there. So it's not like you go out and say, I'm recruiting a virtual board. I just think it's probably more an internal thing. So I think for me, it's accountability. I probably got, a good 5 or 6 people who are not all particularly entrepreneurs, actually. So I've got a guy, Liam, who I play rugby with, who's someone I talk about my fitness. We do challenges, we do all kind of stuff and that. And I've got a few friends, again, not in the business world, but, talking about growth mindset and books and share books and ideas. It's things like that, really, I guess. But then right through to, we're looking at, financial management, all of that kind of stuff. It's just, I suppose I'm quite an advocate of kind of really focusing on your strengths, and less so, I think that's where you see a better growth. But obviously in terms of those blind spots, it's just having those people you can go and speak to, really. So I think everybody's virtual board is going to be different, but it's just a case of understanding what are the different components. And it's just sometimes just picking up the phone and having a chat. And that doesn't just apply to business, that also applies to parenting. I know I've got a couple of people I can go and speak to about particular parenting problems or whatever it may be. So it's just, and vice versa, I feel like people could do that with me as well. So
have you ever had to cut someone out of your virtual board because they were negative?
I think that's definitely something I've done a lot in the last 2 years, is cut a hell of a lot of people out. I think just looking at in terms of, I don't hear or listen to the High Performance podcast with
No, I haven't.
Jake Humphries and Damien Hughes, but they have this thing about drains or fountains. It's like is a someone or a situation, are they a drain or are they a fountain? And I just get to a situation like, you're very much draining my time, my energy, or also potentially my behaviors or my reactions might be a drain to you. And I have done that in the last couple of weeks, just cut situations away and cut people away because it was just draining my time, draining my energy. And I'd much rather be surrounded by fountains and be getting something and also being able to give something as well. So yeah, I think you've got to have, I think that's quite a simple analogy to run things by. But just cut them out, or silence them a little bit. It's the same with social media. I've probably done that as well, is just unfollowed particular people or muted things where I just think, just isn't good for my health consuming that.
Yeah. My girlfriend Sarah actually inspired me to do that, because she was just tired of going through social media. But instead of, it's almost like the option is just delete all the social media apps and then be a bit of a modern hermit. But what she did was unfollow everyone that wasn't kind of adding value to her newsfeed, if you like, and then just followed everything that was really positive. So it ended up being like all these greyhound rescue adoption things that she wants to support, and all these things to do with powerlifting, and everything that's actually inspirational and in line with what she wants to do.
Well, I think she follows me, so I'm really happy to hear that. I'm going to have to check that. Yeah.
No, she was actually one of the people that said that I need to chat with you and have a conversation about it. So yeah, she does.
No, I think it's like over Christmas, I just all the meme accounts like Archbishop of Banterbury and whatever it may. I literally just deleted them because it just skewed just a world of kind of like, this fake news. But then it's just like I just cut it out and actually just feel so much better about it. So yeah, I've just muted accounts so it doesn't offend some people, and I just think it's just, you are what you consume, so and I really believe in that, that this virtual board is very much as well a little bit like you are the kind of average of the 5 people around you as well, and I really believe in that as well. Really believe in that. You've got, they elevate you, they ground you as well when you need to be. So it's really important to have the right people around you and the right influences, particularly if you're on a journey as well.
Yeah, definitely, because you're going to become someone different, and a lot of the time people around you won't be able to see that new person you're becoming until you've actually become them.
Yeah.
When I first started the gym, I mean, that's 11 years ago now, I was living in a flat with two guys, and in the center of Manchester, and it was just constant parties, and I was like 21, 22, and it was just chaos. And they'd always make fun of the gym because it was in a storage container and it looked like a piece of shit, basically. And they'd always make fun, saying, "Oh, you're never going to make it out of the shipping container, or are you off to the shed to train or whatever." And I just moved out. I thought, this isn't going to benefit me, and I didn't cut them out of my life, but I distanced myself from them and got a more positive roommate, and started investing in myself in that way. And I do find that difficult because I'm not very good at confronting people and telling them how I feel. I'm more of I'll just remove myself and kind of freeze everything out, which can be a bad thing sometimes, because like we were just saying, you sometimes don't get that support then because you've frozen everyone out, or you've isolated yourself.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've really struggled with, and I've even had that conversation in my head over the last couple of days as well. I was thinking, do I go and not delete, but just delete my apps of Instagram, not even maybe put any content out as well, which I put out daily, because I just need to focus on a few things. I want to focus on a few things, etc. And all those elements. And it's a bit of I've had this thing about, cutting my phone out more, blah, 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 blah. But then I kind of look back and it's like, okay, I just need to have a bit more control myself. And, like this morning I did a workout, and I put a little sunrise post, put my workout on. People might just think, oh God, that's just annoying. But actually, I also know that I do get messages from people who I don't really know. So I got one a few days ago from this guy who I kind of seen out and about in a pub, in the past. And he said, I just want to let you know, your posts about your health and well-being have totally inspired me. We've just had twins, and, I've absolutely caning it. I used to see you, out and about in the pub, always drunk, and I've actually seen what you've done. So thinking, actually, if that's, been a positive influence on someone I hardly know, that's great. But also, particularly the constant project stuff, I don't put content out really for anybody else. People follow it, people engage it, but the main thing for me is it actually allows me to writing content and putting content out is more therapy for me of putting stuff out as well. But again, I know it's, I've had messages there around how it's helped people with mental health and stuff like that. So again, I feel that's like a fountain. It's not braggy. It's not, hey, look at me. It's just like, I'm doing this. And if people go, actually, you know what, I can get up at 7 o'clock and do that as well, that's great. So social media I've got an up and down relationship with it. I probably spend too much time on Instagram than I need to be. I'm not on Facebook or Twitter. But yeah, just refining that consumption of what I want to see and what I want to put out, really. And it's not anything, I'm not putting out a skewed view of my world and this is reality. I'm getting up 6 o'clock in the morning and going out to the workout in the park. That's the truth. It's not, I'm not putting anything that's fake, I guess. But
yeah.
And I want to eat Jaffa cakes. Well, if people want to know that I've had some Jaffa cakes, I can put that on as well. But most people on social media know that I'm a addict to Jaffa cakes as well. So
yeah, I think, well, first of all, that's awesome that you've had such a good response to it. And I think you are probably getting a benefit from actually writing it and teaching it, because then it helps you ingrain those values and behaviors yourself each day. If you're always talking about it, then that's going to be how you behave each day, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's the thing. It's an accountability as well. I also think as well, social media can be used in a way. You can get that. Put a workout again. I've had people saying, "Oh, well, just put in little responses," and you do get a dopamine rush. So what's wrong with that? That's good. But also, if I was to stop doing that over the next 2, 3, 4 days, I know I've also got a few people saying, "Hey, are you still working out?"
Yeah.
So there's also that accountability element as well. So using social media to go out and say, I am going to do this every day, or I'm going to try to achieve that. Yeah, well, you use social media, let it be your conscience. They're not these people like you call, these people you don't really know, but still people will get on your back in a good way. So I think social media is an interesting one. And like I say, it's a relationship that I'm trying to refine constantly.
Yeah, I think there's an awareness of if it's changing your behavior in a negative way, you just need to be aware of it because the you mentioned Strava before. I had Strava probably about 2 years ago, and I was doing a bit of running and getting into it, and I found that I was just trying to. I was looking at everyone else's, pace per mile or pace per kilometer, and I was like, right, I'm faster than that person, and I'm going to catch that person. But actually, my training program said that I needed to be in a certain heart rate zone, so it was
Yeah.
like I actually needed to go slower to get the aerobic benefit, but I was going faster to try and beat other people. So
Yeah.
after about 18 months, I realized, right, this is benefiting me in no way whatsoever. So I deleted the app and just stuck to like sticking to the heart rate zones and
Yeah.
post on Instagram if I wanted that. But I think there's a comparison effect. It's very difficult to not do because you'll unconsciously see someone else's post and compare yourself with it. Like if it's another gaming company, I'm sure you'll look at it and the first thought is often unconscious, isn't it? The first impression of something is perhaps not within your control, and it's just being aware of that, I think, and
Yeah,
having
I
conversations.
also put a post out for a different reason the other day, and I put it on, and it was simple. It's a Theodore Roosevelt one, and it's just comparison is a thief of joy, and it's so true. And I think that applies to social media, but also I think it applies to, like you say, about times and stuff like that. Is, I was thinking about, I was even thinking about it yesterday. I was having a bit of a run around the park, and there was a girl. She must have been like 20 stone, but she was running. And it'd be so easy to for me to dash back and her think, oh my God, this guy's like lapping me like crazy. But actually in my head, I was like thinking, where is she going to be in 3 years' time if she keeps going? And it's like you constantly compare to each other. You're gonna just not enjoy or be present in the moment. So I think that's really important about social media and lots of things in life is just stop comparing yourself to others because you're just not going to enjoy where you are right now, because that girl was lapping everybody else who was sat on their ass on the sofa.
Yeah,
So so comparison is a thief of joy. I think it just doesn't, comparing yourself all the time is just constantly it's just you're gonna be less present. And when I train with other lads, I want to be faster with them and they push me in the elevator, but that's about elevation. It isn't about the fact that I push myself to the limit, first and foremost, is far more important whether they beat me or didn't beat me at something. So I think that's
yeah.
really important as well, is your own journey and where you are today, because you can't get from off the couch 20 stone to running a marathon in 2 days. You've got to enjoy every step of it and that journey.
I totally agree, mate. I think that Jordan Peterson calls it aiming low, or don't be a perfectionist. Basically, what can you actually do today? I was making fun of one of my mates yesterday because he was like, "Oh, I haven't trained. I've set up an amazing home gym, excuse me, and I haven't used it." And I said, "Well, just do one press up, and then it's like infinite amount more than zero." And just when you do that one press up, you'll probably end up doing 4 sets of 10 or whatever, and getting into the. But it's just that first step, isn't it? That's
I think there's an amazing parallel between that and entrepreneurship as well. Is there's so many great ideas that I've never come to light because people have just not took that first step. And it's the same with health and well-being. People have just never made that first step on that journey, done that first rep or ran that first kilometer because they're just too scared. And the hardest thing is always lacing up the boots and you're getting out there. I think that's the hardest thing. Once you've done that, everything else just falls into place. And I always say that people that I train with, I just say, look, you've done the hard work. You've got here. You've got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You've got here. Everything else is a breeze now. And I think that's exactly the same in entrepreneurial journey is you've got a great idea. You've got great intentions, but taking that first step is the hardest. So I think there's a parallel with if you can get up in the morning and do that, how does that translate into your business world of actually taking that step? Getting the reps in is just applies in business as well. It does as to health and fitness.
yeah. Well, I totally relate because I do the the negative side of that, where I wait till everything's perfect, then I'll do it. And that actually never happens. So you end up just procrastinating years of your life on projects that, I've got notebooks from 10 years ago on, I want to do a leadership podcast. And it's only this year that I'm actually, you know what, just do it. So what, I can't go to people's houses because of lockdown, just do it on Zoom, just trying to think of what's a positive thing I can actually do. And the resistance just melts away then, and you can actually achieve things.
Yeah, you can see that with a lot of people with the gyms closing over Christmas as well. Is, oh my God, I can't do this. It's like, if you can't at least get your 10,000 steps in during lockdown, like, you can do something, and that's just, it's just, don't wait for the perfect. I can be bad at that. For me, February the 1st being on a Monday was like the best thing for my head. It was like, oh my God, it's so clean. It's like, this is perfect. It's a perfect storm for me. And in my head, so my head's a little bit like that as well. And to be fair, I don't know you. I think you're a big advocate of James Clear and Atomic Habits and stuff like that. And I'm really into my habit tracking. And literally, I just had a bit of a bad emotional dip with something related to work last week, and then I started to eat a bit crap, and then it was like, but it's okay because it's Monday the 1st of March coming up, and that mindset is still a bit, it's still, it kind of shows you waiting for that perfection of starting on the 1st of a month. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Always trying to wait for perfection, but it just turns into procrastination and nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Do you know, have you heard of Dexter Jackson, the Mr. Olympia competitor? He's quite old now.
No, I've not.
Well, he's not that old. He's like in his 50s, but still doing Mr. Olympias. He's got some really interesting, what I call like old man training philosophies. He won't lift with free weights because his joints are kind of getting a bit knackered now, and he doesn't want to injure himself. So his kind of minimum effective approach is I just use machines. And if he's not feeling the movement of a certain chest press, he'll literally drive across town and find a different gym with a slightly different chest press that feels better on his joints that day. So his approach is really about looking after himself. And his diet is like, he allows himself one cheat meal a day, which it just sounds hilarious when you first think about it. But compared to what, I do and other people probably do when they're not tracking food, which is pretty much 100% cheat meals. If he's eating 8 meals a day because he's a pro bodybuilder, then it's only 1/8 of his time. 1/8 of his nutrition is bad. 7/8 of it is actually really good. And when you start thinking about it like that, he's making it easy to go to the gym. He enjoys the movements because they feel good on his body. He's getting to eat what he wants every single day. And it's that kind of anti-perfectionism that's made him into a Mr. Olympia competitor for like 20.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Like, and that kind of philosophy is what I kind of use with my habit tracking. So literally, I at the end of every month, so last night, I kind of do like a review and reflection of different areas. So through to my mornings, I think mornings are really important. So review how I think my mornings have got, and I've got habits linked to that, movement, nutrition, parenting, productivity. And I just kind of do a page writing my thoughts about how it went. But that's all linked to then setting what my habit tracker will look like. So for this month, I think I've had like, for March, it's got 26 different things that I need to do on my habit tracker every day, which sounds quite a lot. But actually some of that is, morning meditation, 5 minutes, apple cider vinegar with my thingy, reading a page of the Daily Stoic. So there's little things that whatever. And I kind of looked through it last night. I reviewed February's, and there's quite a few reds on it. But actually, when I totted it all up, I hit 91% of my habits for the month. And I kind of look back, and I actually wrote my thing is like, I was 91% in the favor of the person I want to be.
Like
that's how I view it. And I kind of see it like an election is, to get change, or to get power, you need 50% of the vote. But if you get just 50% of the vote, or just a smidge over, you can never make transformational change because you're always going to be dragged down by the opposition. It's always going to drag you down. So what I try and get is that kind of 85, 90% landslide victory, because then at that point, you know, it's unformidable. Effectively, yeah, you might have had, you know, a cheat meal here, which wasn't on your plan. You might have not got your 10,000 steps in, but actually, you know, when you have something like, I had 655 different votes I could have cast for the person I want to be, you know, and it was around about 550 something odd. So actually, I cast all those votes in favor of the person I want to be, and that's how I see it. So I don't look back and go, oh my God, there was 60 times where I didn't do things. Actually thinking, God, you know, I've done really, really well there. So that's important as well. Is not always having perfection, but actually looking at the bigger picture over a period of a month or a year.
No, I really like that. So if we kind of delve into the dark side of business, and obviously you've got these really positive practices now that have come from probably a solution to a problem that you've had in the past. Would you mind sharing your kind of mental health journey with business and kind of pressure and things that have kind of knocked you off course? I think it could be really helpful to open up about that, and then we can work backwards and think, right, that's why you've got these good habits now. Because I think that people, I'm generalizing, but I think that people overlook something so simple as a habit tracker or a morning. They don't see what it's actually benefiting. But if you could share your story, maybe we'll see, right, it's actually the foundation for success. And if you don't have that foundation, you know, bad things could happen.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I was a young dad at 19, 20, worked in the banking industry for about 10 years. And then in the crash, I then kind of started doing a bit of consultancy, and then basically then kind of found my first business, which was in the endurance space. So half marathons, et cetera. And that blew up quite quickly in a short space of time. And I was traveling a hell of a lot around the world, constantly back and forth to America, around Europe. And despite being an industry which is kind of health and well-being, the actual event industry, I think, is probably quite unhealthy. You know, it's long days, it's this, that, and any other. And I had this massive conflict where I, on the one hand, was kind of like running half marathons, running marathons, wherever it may be, going to the gym, training with you, because I felt this perception that, I work in the wellness thing, but also the reality of the industry, and also just the chaotic lifestyle that I lived. Just this massive conflict, which both physically and mentally was just manifesting in so many different ways. I had some levels of success. I bought my first asset for £1, and I sold that for over $1 million. But I was never happy, I guess, on reflection. That didn't give me happiness. That business transaction kind of failed, and that money didn't come through. And just completely lost, I think, both mentally and physically, health-wise. Always trying to do a bit of training. Obviously, I trained with you. I think it was probably a really good spell for me, but also the travel was taking me away from it. But really enjoyed the honesty of coming to train with you guys in the morning, and got quite strong. But it's just that consistency and actually understanding why am I doing this, I think, is quite key. And I think that was lost a lot of purpose in my life. So yeah, I got to a place in 2019, back into 2019, where I was totally mentally and physically broke, financially broke as well. And I tried to take my own life, and thankfully I was stopped from doing that. And that was just kind of a bit of an awakening on many levels, really, and started to put things in a lot more context as to the importance of life. And it's took me, good 18 months now to still work out what does happiness looks like. And it's something that I'm working on every day. So what does happiness look like? What does that journey look like? And that's the kind of journey I'm on at the moment. It's nothing more like, your own mortality that makes you wake up a little bit. And and I think still, like I say, had successes, delivered some great things, got 2 great kids, great relationship with them. I think I'm a good friend. I've had some great times. So it's not all doom and gloom, but actually I think now it's just kind of stripping back what life is really about for me and what life is every day. And, ultimately what it will look like when I exit at the right time.
So was it one incident that caused you to kind of have those mental health issues, or was it like a slow build up of?
Yeah, I think it's a slow build up. And I think I remember being in that kind of, I was at a time when I had the first couple of weeks where I had the suicide prevention team literally coming around the house every day or so to make sure that I was safe and having those conversations. And for someone who never thought he had a mental health problem, it was then having a conversation. And then I remember the guy saying, do you know now you've backed up to nearly 15 years now of like issues you've talked about? And again, just completely blind that I had these mental health issues. So it's had lots of issues that I wasn't aware of. I just thought were just life. But actually, yeah, things are built up over a long time. So yeah, and I think that's the thing is people think mental health is a bad thing, but we've all got mental health. Every person on this planet has a mental health to look after. And I do kind of contextualize mental health now as more like physical health, or how people see it as mental health is we all have a mental health. We can all get mentally fit. And, I think if you was to say it like a hamstring is occasionally I get the odd twinge.
Yeah.
I might really have moments where it's really, really, really bad and I've really pulled it and I need to go into recovery and I need to recuperate and rest.
Yeah.
But it's always got to be looked after. It's a constant thing. You're never going to say I'm mentally well. It's like it is a health. And I think that's the big thing that people get it wrong is that we've all got a mental health. We've all got the opportunity to be mentally fitter. We're always going to get a little bit. Yeah, we're going to have our flare-ups occasionally, but it's about managing it and understanding it.
I think if you do have a niggle, it's probably a really good metaphor. Actually, it's easy to ignore, and it's easy to go, that's just my shoulders playing up as usual, and then 6 years later you blow your entire AC joint in half doing a bench press because you've actually not looked after it.
Not looked after it, you're not resilient enough, you're not strong enough. And when some real trauma or real aggravation comes along, you're just not equipped to do it. And that's no different with a physical or mental.
I went to a really good mobility course once, and they said that injury occurs when the load exceeds the tissue's capacity for it. And I think that's the same with mental health. If the load you're under exceeds your capacity to deal with it, the only thing that can happen is you break.
I think someone said to me about suicide is that everybody on this planet's got it. Everybody's on this planet's got it in them. I think everybody's capable of doing it. It's just about how far you can go. Sorry, can you hear that?
Yeah, don't worry, man. I can hear it.
One sec.
There's people banging around in my house. It's all good.
I'll have to edit this bit out. One sec. I see if it's going to be. I'm getting my bathroom done today, so.
It's not too loud, to be fair.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Crack on.
So, did you have like talking therapy and support? I'm just aware that people might be going through some.
Yeah, I had talking therapy, and I think that's the first time I really did start to speak. And I think as well, when you crash so low, it just does allow you to have this freedom just to speak. And I think that's one thing is like if you've got that low, it's just anything's like you just can be much more candid about things. Well, that was my experience. I had help, professional help. I resisted going on to medication for quite a while. Eventually I was kind of persuaded to go on that, and I kind of the way that kind of got described to me was I got some help by the rugby league cares people who kind of like the help with mental health for professional players mainly, but those guys reached out and helped me, and what really was described to me is like a tablet does not, isn't going to solve your mental health problem. It's part of a suite of things that you need to build out your own way. So that whether that be meditation, whether it be physical exercise, maybe be talking therapy, these are lots of things where I think a lot of people just think a tablet will solve everything for them. But I think that's not the case. I don't believe in that mental health is just a chemical imbalance. I think there's a cause behind that. I don't know if you ever read the book Lost Connection by Johan Hari. Talks about where mental health comes from. It's about a lost connection with community, all these different things. So I didn't last too long on the tablets. It was more thinking about, okay, how do I reconnect with the world in a much better place? And that's a journey that I'm on. It's a journey I think I'll be on to the day I die. And I think it's a journey that everybody should be on daily. That's why I kind of called my blog The Constant Project. It's kind of like, this is something that I've got to show up every day. I've got to constantly be working at having a good life.
How did that change your approach to business? Or was that like the start of last year, 2020?
So yeah, 2020, I think I kind of started, I did a podcast with a guy called Mike Winnett, and that just blew up. It got like, I think it's up to like 45, 50,000 views on YouTube. And I had all these kind of like business people, entrepreneurs coming to me going like, wow, like that's just unreal. Like you've just described how I feel. And it kind of put this spotlight on, actually, God, there's a bigger problem than everybody's going through it who's an entrepreneur or potentially going through it. And that's where the Constant Project came about. And I just kind of just being open and candid just helped. And, it's just that vulnerability just seemed to kind of like get a good reaction and fueled this journey really. And then I think lockdown came, but not too long after. And for the first few weeks, I kind of took the view, like, oh my God, I was starting on this journey and this is kind of like stopping me. But it didn't take me too long to realize that actually this was a great opportunity for me. And that's what I have used the last year of lockdown is, I've had my moments, but at the same time, I've lost, 45 pounds. I've read a shed load of books. I've started to meditate. I journal every day, practice, being grateful, all these different, learning about the power of habits. It was a great opportunity where the distractions of going out or doing this or the expectations of the world, I was just allowed to be. I was allowed to recenter at home. Home was a place, it was just a place that I felt like a pass through, but actually being that forced at home and being with the kids and turning a house into a home and making it my center, a place where I work, a place I could work out, a place I could spend time with the kids, and just completely change my mindset. So lockdown was really, really good for me. Probably came at a really good time.
Awesome. And what caused you to kind of go into video games then? Was that something you've always been interested in? It's
a project that I was working on before I had my big crash, really. And it was more out the fact that my two kids were really into Fortnite. And then I was watching their habits of not just playing the game, but also them watching streamers play the game. And then from my business side of me was looking at the economics of these kids who are in a bedroom making millions a year, thinking, God, this is really interesting. I just started to kind of learn. And then actually found out that actually Warrington, where I'm from, there's actually a load of developers and all this talent that's really struggling. So all these kind of things were coming to me, thinking, God, there's a massive opportunity here to maybe, my experience of putting events on and building communities is like, could we do that in a different, really powerful way? And I'm, there's some beliefs I have around about education and health and well-being, thinking, God, there are gaming events and festivals, but actually there's nothing that connects everybody together. And that's where it's got to at the moment.
Yeah. Esports is pretty huge, isn't it? In terms of them actually being athletes.
Esports is really interestingly because everybody's a lot of focus on esports at the moment. The gaming industry is worth about $153 billion dollars, US dollars at the moment, but esports only accounts for 1 billion of that. So there's lots of attention on esports, but it just shows that underneath that iceberg, there's a hell of a lot of an ecosystem of developers, gamers, indies, wherever it may be. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot of attention in esports. It's a little bit like, my experience of in the running industry. You have your big marathon majors, New York Marathon, London. You can see that like your esports. But below that, you've got your local park runs, your clubs, your grassroots. People just go out for a run casually. There's all of that effectively go, and that's how I see the gaming industry. It's a bit like that, using a quite a simple analogy for me, working in the running industry for so long. There's a lot of focus on esports, but below that, that's where the opportunity is to enable those people and give them a voice.
And that's through helping people get jobs as developers, or just getting into the...
Yeah, absolutely. Just connecting ideas with investment and people who want to get into industry with jobs. So it's really exciting. And it's something, again, we've done that stuff before with the running events about, getting great health outcomes or economic impact outcomes for cities. This is no different. And it's just a really exciting space, I guess, as well. And it's getting a great reaction from the conversations we're having around the world, and we should be we're getting close to launching our brand in the next couple of months.
Cool. So when's the first event? Have you got that?
Our aim is to be Q4 of 2022.
Wicked, man. That's really exciting.
It's been a bit, in terms of an idea that I was working on in 2018, 2019. So it's been a long old slog. There's lots of personal trials and tribulations in between, but yeah, just it's a hell of an undertaking to get people on board and investment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome, man. Because I think that kind of sums up that journey of you perhaps doing something that was damaging you in terms of your mental health and even your physical health, because like you said, once you were able to get out of that situation and be at home or have a better environment, you've got fitter and lost weight and being able to do what you are clearly a lot more passionate about by the sounds of it, with the video games and the events.
It's not just that. I think I feel like when you go so low, it's so easy just to kind of give up on your life and stuff. I'm still very ambitious. Still want to achieve some great things, but actually my life's a great success right now. I go to bed every night knowing that me and the boys are healthy. Everything else is a bonus. It's that kind of stoic, really starting to get into stoic philosophy as well. So actually knowing that here and today is the best it's ever going to be, and it's trying to live like that. It's not like living it every day like she last, because I just think that I don't really buy into that concept. But actually knowing that, you can go to bed grateful every day, and success isn't an exit on a business. It isn't a dollar amount. It isn't a car, it isn't a house, it's a holiday. It's actually just much more simple than that. And all those other things may be part of the journey, but they shouldn't define you as an entrepreneur or as a person or as a father. Actually, I'm not too interested in leaving a legacy behind me. I'm more interested about what my kids think about the impact I had on their life. That's the only important thing for me.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. That's a really nice message. Now, I think we could probably wrap it up pretty soon, but if you were going to give perhaps a few things that an entrepreneur or an executive or a manager was going to do every day in terms of a habit, or perhaps in terms of value, like feeling that they're on purpose with their life, they've got some meaning to their life, what are those things that you think are essential that a leader needs to have, not just for themselves but also to demonstrate to their team and have a really good culture within their organization?
I think a couple of things. I think having that value proposition. Again, buy into the Simon Sinek kind of reason for why. So having your why is really important, to remind yourself of effectively why you're doing something and what value you're going to give to the world. I think being grateful, practicing gratitude is really key as well, because you'll find that there's a hell of a lot of great stuff in your life right now, and what you're trying to achieve, it's great, it pushes you forward, actually be happy where you are right now. I think that's probably the two key things. But also, I think, I said about the habits as well is just understand and having your habits pointing towards that why as well is really key. So that about every step, every day you can make some steps. You can spend an hour on something that whether that be your fitness or a business idea, but actually will lead to that. I think it's just it's getting the reps in. I think just getting the reps in every day and showing up, and something is better than nothing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think if I could, I'll probably clumsily walk all over your message with a little summary, but we train a lot of powerlifters now in the gym. That's pretty much all we cater for now is powerlifters. And we've got a bit of a running joke that a newbie powerlifter will come in to powerlifting. They'll follow a load of people on Instagram. They'll see people that are their same weight class, and they'll start comparing themselves to them. Then the next point is they feel suddenly overwhelmed that they'll never be as those people, and they feel terrible about themselves. And then they'll actually stop comparing themselves and kind of remove themselves from that comparison. And instead they'll commit to, I'll never be that strong, but I'm just going to train 4 times a week. And that's when they actually get strong, is when it becomes a process goal instead of a kind of an ego goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got a friend who I'm doing a bit of mentoring with at the moment, and he kind of described to me this shelf. He goes, I've got this shelf, and I want to keep pushing it higher. I want to keep pushing this shelf higher. And he said to me the other day, such a body, why, they've got this massive big house and car. Why can't I have that? I said, well, yeah, you can push yourself to that. But once you've got the same car as him and the house like his, is your terms of reference is going to change, and you're going to want to keep pushing that. You're not going to be happy with that. You're going to be around with new people, and you're going to keep pushing it. So I said, rather than just reaching for the shelf, I was like, be the shelf. Focus on making sure that on that shelf you're collecting great experiences, but make sure that you're anchored to the wall safely and securely, and just keep filling the shelf up. Be the shelf. Don't keep reaching for it, because otherwise you're never going to be happy, and you're going to just constantly run yourself into the ground. And I think that's the kind of analogy that I would kind of back up yours as well, really.
Yeah, beautiful point to finish on. Thanks, Rob. So, where can people find out a bit more about you and follow your stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I think, just search me, Rob Griffiths. You can follow me at the Constant Project as well on Instagram. So that's at the Constant Project. And that's where I put out daily content and some blogs and stuff like that each week. That's where you can get me.
Well, thanks for doing this, Rob. And it's been a really wicked episode. There's loads of stuff for people to dive in. Links to the rugby league cares and some other mental health things in the show notes, and just appreciate you doing it, mate. Thanks for
I appreciate the time, and love to come and see the gym when we can do, and maybe train with you, see how powerful my lift